CM Punk is reportedly not planning to sue AEW President Tony Khan or All Elite Wrestling after he was fired with cause and has no intentions or plans of litigation either. Details on that plus the latest on Jade Cargill, her move to WWE, reports she's already at the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, and her AEW departure seemingly has been confirmed as she has been removed from the AEW roster page on their website. Kevin Nash responds to LA Knight's shout-out, or diss depending on how you look at it, on SmackDown. WWE morale is reportedly decimated after layoffs last week, and some believe internally in the company this would have never happened if Stephanie McMahon was still with WWE. QT Marshall confirms he has signed a new deal, a short-term contract with All Elite Wrestling, and now has 2 deals with the company, and Rob Van Dam explains how his upcoming AEW Collision appearance came to be. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about the latest developments when it comes to CM Punk, his AEW departure, and if it's going to get messier than it already was. And apparently that will not happen, as CM Punk does not plan on getting involved with any legal action against AEW or its president and owner Tony Khan. During Cage Fury Fighting Championship 125 this past Friday night, CM Punk returned to television as one of the card's commentators. Punk initially signed on as a commentator for the promotion in 2018 and somewhat ironically made his first public appearance following AEW All Out 2022 around this time last year at Cage Fury Fighting Championships 114. Early in the program, Punk's co-commentator John Morgan joked that the Second City Saint had returned to his duties for the promotion with cause, a subtle reference to his AEW termination. Later on in the show, when discussing the possible post-shows for the upcoming events, Punk was asked if he had time on his hands for something like that, to which he said he would have time on his hands for about the next 2 months. The line about having the next 2 months free immediately sparked speculation that Punk could be making a big move back to WWE. In 2 months' time, WWE will return to Punk's hometown of Chicago, Illinois for their annual Survivor Series premium live event. On top of that, Fightful reported earlier this year that AEW plans to return to the Windy City the Wednesday before their annual Thanksgiving week episode of Dynamite. With all that in mind, it could set an appealing stage for Punk to return to the fold within WWE. Now, according to Nick Hausman of House of Wrestling, they've been not able to confirm whether or not Punk has a non-compete clause following his termination with AEW. However, while asking around about the possibility of one, Nick Hausman is reporting that he did learn that Punk does not have any litigation pending against Tony Khan following his termination. Now, considering how Khan said that he felt that his life was in danger during Punk's backstage altercation at AEW All in London, many people had asked whether Punk could be considering action, whether it be libelous or an employment tribunal, something like that. House of Wrestling Nick Hausman is reporting that that is not the case. From what Nick Hausman can gather, Punk is apparently and reportedly looking to avoid any further litigation and wants to move on with his life. According to Nick Hausman, he was described to Hausman as someone breathing in a sign of relief now that he is away from the day-to-day drama that seemed to follow him at All Elite Wrestling. Now, it's also been reported by House of Wrestling that they've not been able to confirm and gather whether any pending legal action on AEW or Tony Khan's behalf towards Punk is pending, but things do seem quiet between the two sides. So whilst they have been able to confirm that CM Punk is not having any active litigation against AEW or Tony Khan and doesn't plan to, they haven't been able to confirm that on the other side of things. However, it seems quite quiet, and it does look like both parties just want to move on at this point. So the other question then begins to loom, and that is, would WWE welcome CM Punk back into the fold now that he's done with All Elite Wrestling and really back into the wave of professional wrestling at this point? Now, Nick Hausman says that he's been doing a lot of asking around about a possible WWE return since Punk's termination, and he has yet to meet someone in WWE or with knowledge of the situation who has actively ruled it out. One WWE source that Houseman spoke to noted that the buzz internally about Punk as a potential free agent is not like it was when Cody Rhodes was rumored to be on the market at the beginning of 2022. Another source reportedly told Houseman that while there could be interest, timing is everything in the professional wrestling industry, and at the moment WWE's product is white hot and doesn't necessarily need a big name signing to boost television ratings or ticket sales because the ratings are high and they're selling out near enough every arena that they do an event in. With that being said though, multiple sources reportedly made it clear to Nick Houseman that they saw WWE and Punk working together as a possibility if good business can be done, especially with WWE and UFC merging to form TKO Group Holdings. The new publicly traded company will be looking for more ways to appease stockholders who it ultimately answers to. WWE President Nick Khan recently commented on Punk possibly returning and said they have nothing but respect for the former WWE champion. So it looks like neither side are going to go down the legal route, which would possibly open the path for a CM Punk return to WWE, possibly in 2 months' time, but the non-compete stuff is still yet to be confirmed. What are your thoughts on the latest developments about this? Should CM Punk be worried about litigation from Tony Khan or AEW if indeed Khan felt that his life was in danger? Let me know your thoughts about all of it, as always, in the comment section below. Now, Jade Cargill, what's the latest with Jade Cargill? We did an update earlier today, and now we've got a new one, and this one looks to be moving very, very fast. It was reported last week that Jade Cargill was set to leave All Elite Wrestling to link up with WWE, and according to PW Insider, the former AEW TBS champion is scheduled to be at the WWE Performance Center this week. It's said that Cargill's contract with AEW has now expired. As I mentioned, the most recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter suggested that Cargill would be joining WWE's main roster rather than being assigned to NXT. It was also noted that Cargill's name had been spoken about a lot in the Stamford, Connecticut-based promotion. On the September 9 episode of AEW Collision, Cargill made her first appearance in AEW since losing the TBS championship to Chris Statlander at Double or Nothing earlier this year. The 31-year-old immediately targeted Statlander, setting up a TBS title clash on this past Friday's episode of Rampage, which she ultimately lost. After that bout, Cargill and Statlander shook hands and hugged in the middle of the ring. Of course, it wouldn't be Cargill's first interactions with WWE. Cargill said she turned WWE down following a tryout at the Performance Center in 2019. She then debuted for AEW in November of the following year. In January 2022, she would win the inaugural AEW TBS Championship and hold the gold for 508 days. But now we have a bit more development about her plans for this week, and seemingly not only confirming her departure from AEW, but almost near enough confirming her signing with World Wrestling Entertainment. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Jade Cargill has indeed finished up with AEW and is likely headed to WWE, and they've learned some more details about her departure and what's going on right now. Those that Fightful spoke to around the situation on all sides, WWE, AEW, and those close to Jade Cargill, she does have quite a big entourage, implied that her deal with AEW would be up as of last Friday and she'd be eligible to go wherever she wanted to. WWE sources have told Fightful that Jade will be in Orlando this week at the Performance Center, as well as other reports had claimed. Now, sources, according to Fightful, claim that Jade Cargill isn't planned for tonight's episode of Raw or tomorrow's episode of NXT as of now. Anything possibly can change in pro wrestling, of course, but she is expected to sign with the company as of now. Now, they're trying to find out if this is going to be a private tryout, physicals, medical tests, or something like that, or if she's just reporting to the Performance Center for other reasons, meetings, etc., paperwork. Pretty much almost every wrestler that is brought in or returns is required to make a Performance Center trip, except for very exceptional circumstances like a Brock Lesnar or something like that. So Jade Cargill needs to be at the Performance Center for a variety of reasons this week. As far as WWE's interest, according to Sean Ross Sapp, WWE has long had interest in the former AEW star, but some within WWE had heard of interest back in July. Again, we're going back several months now, and several associated with her reportedly teased that, quote, big moves could be coming, though they didn't outright say what these big moves would be at the time. There were several people close to her that were being very coy about her future plans and not outright mentioning WWE. However, higher-ups in AEW were aware of the plans reportedly to jump to WWE, so according to them, this wasn't a massive surprise and they weren't sort of taken aback, and it wasn't out of the blue that she would be interested in making this jump from AEW to WWE. Now, those close to Cargill have also said that she was treated well by All Elite Wrestling upon leaving, and there doesn't seem to be any ill will from either either side. According to Sean Ross Sapp, she received a nice ovation backstage and spoke with numerous talent about wrapping up with the company. It was said that it was important to AEW to give Cargill an appropriate send-off. Now, as I mentioned, she's now no longer listed on the roster page. We'll get to that in just a second. But sources within WWE that Fightful spoke to were speculating where Cargill would go as it pertains to the main roster or NXT. Of course, Dave Meltz had speculated due to the amount of money, it was more likely she would go to the main roster as opposed to NXT. Fightful are saying they've not heard of any negative implications or impressions from WWE staff or the roster, and most have said they've yet to hear anything actually bad about her at all. Of course, this is very significant because Cargill would be the second signed AEW talent to make the jump to WWE following Cody Rhodes after the company lost numerous talent to AEW in past years. It depends how you want to look at it, though. Reportedly, Brian Pillman Jr. has signed with WWE as well, so maybe that makes the third, but it's certainly the second biggest one and a second former champion from AEW that has jumped over to WWE as well. Now, when it comes to her being confirmed that she has indeed left AEW, seemingly today, AEW has confirmed her departure because AEW has removed her from the roster page on the company's official website. It was reported by PW Insider that Cargill is currently in Orlando today at the WWE Performance Center. It was kind of disputed at first by Sean Ross Sapp. However, he since deleted a tweet saying that she wasn't at the Performance Center today, which would imply that maybe actually she is at the WWE PC. As far as evidence that she's no longer on the roster page, you would see it right there. She should actually be between Jamie Hayter and Julia Hart. She's no longer there, so she has been removed from the roster page, seemingly confirming her departure from All Elite Wrestling as well. So what are your thoughts on the latest developments when it comes to Jade Cargill being at the Performance Center today? The new details surrounding her AEW exit, suggesting that WWE has long held interest, and some within AEW aren't surprised, but the exit was amicable and they wanted to give her the best send-off possible. Let me know your thoughts about that too in the comment section below. Now, the feud between Kevin Nash and LA Knight, depending on how real it is, Kevin Nash criticizing him initially, then saying he'd never seen him and apologizing, well, it got fired up once again, didn't it? This time by LA Knight on WWE television. Now, WWE Hall of Famer Kevin Nash and LA Knight have had a back and forth over the past few weeks, stemming from comments Nash made about Knight being, quote, an absolute rip-off of The Rock on his podcast. Knight, though, took a shot at Nash on the September 8th episode of SmackDown, where he said he would call the word play an adjective if he was a complete moron, but he wasn't, so he called it a verb. Now, if you're not familiar with this, the line was referencing Kevin Nash's promo from his arrival to WCW alongside Scott Hall, where he said, "This is where the big boys play. Look at the adjective, play." It's not an adjective, it's a verb. So speaking on the Click This podcast, Kevin Nash discussed Knight's promo and shot at him on SmackDown and had quite a lot to say. Here's what Nash had to say, quote, "I had forgotten about it until, LA Knight brought it up on SmackDown. Based on the response the SmackDown crowd gave him, I'm quite sure they had forgotten about it also. I read different things where he took a shot at me. How is that really taking a shot? This guy that is basically a bottom feeder, if you were to look at it systematically, if Hall doesn't jump and Nash doesn't jump and we don't start our thing. All of a sudden, the biggest thing in wrestling is who is the third man. We're already beating WWE in the ratings and have for 4 or 5 weeks. Hulk jumping does make a big difference, but now we have his contract and all of a sudden Mark Mero is getting $500,000 guaranteed from WWE. Granted, I made a mistake because we didn't have everything written. There was no Attitude Era. We had to invent the Attitude Era before you could rip off guys from the Attitude Era. I didn't have a Rock, a Stone Cold. I could have came up behind Bischoff and slammed 2 beers behind my back and guzzled them down the front of my shirt had I known. Scott could have had on a pair of wielding goggles and Wu-Tang Timberlands, but not tucked in, just have them out like a construction village people. I mistakenly say adjective instead of verb when I picked my action heroes or favorite pro wrestlers when I was a kid. Grammar and punctuation wasn't that important to me. I don't ever say that guy's grammar is so bad I don't think I can hang out with him anymore. San Martino is a perfect example. There is a guy, rocked his sat. I start following this chain, this story of how he laid into me. I apologize and people want him to be their chosen one. He can be their chosen one. I have no problem with that. It looked like I took the high road and he, for some reason, I understand why he did it, because he doesn't effing know. It took him 29 years to get over. He's going to make mistakes along the way. It wasn't like he had any clear-cut pattern or plan to make it besides Rock and Steve have been gone long enough. He could do their shit. I see where he's up for a new contract. I called Triple H. Paul, what's the deal? Early, it said negotiations were going great, and then it seemed like there was a hitch. Paul told me, I don't understand this kid. Kid, this guy is my age. Are you more worried about the fact that his fan appeal would recede faster than his hairline? Unless you're just a knob gobbler, there is no way that you would pick those sunglasses as something to wear. Paul said, we're so far apart that the only way I'll sign this guy is as a nostalgiac. Like me, a legend still? Yeah, he's doing their shit. I can't give him the same pay as guys going out there doing original shit. He went back 27 years to find the adjective. If I would have known Moses was going to come down with a golden tab that said, thou shalt not use adjective in place of a verb, if I would have known that, maybe I would have written something down. I was stoned to the bone and on guaranteed money. Come on, dude, you can do better than that. Obviously, he can't. I guess the impasse is he's been offered a Legends deal, which I would take. I'm in the Hall of Fame twice, both times as Kevin Nash. He's LA Knight. Who the F is LA Knight? Is that Night Ranger's first vinyl? The name of it? It's like Oz. You're the evening. What is LA Knight? Anything he can steal, he's on it. Nothing original, certainly. So again, certainly a lot by Kevin Nash there in response to LA Knight. What do you make of his response? He did say last week when he was talking about CM Punk that he was just happy with saying outlandish stuff to get views and money. Do you think that's what Kevin Nash is doing? Or is there a bit more salt behind his comments this time? Do you think he actually believes what he's saying about LA Knight? Let me know your thoughts about that. Now, of course, WWE is just coming off the back of this merger with UFC to form TKO, and obviously because of that, there was a lot of layoffs last week, and morale, as you would expect, is pretty low right now. Morale among WWE employees is said to be, quote, decimated, and there's a belief that it wouldn't be the case if Stephanie McMahon was still around. On Friday, September 15, over 100 WWE employees were let go from their jobs just 3 days after WWE's merger with UFC/Endeavor to form TKO was finalized. Now, today is the remaining employees' first day back at work, and PW Insider reports that, quote, decimated would be an understatement, end quote, to describe the current morale. Employees had been ordered to work remotely on Friday while the layoffs were happening, so there was no chance to say goodbye or anything like that. Instead, there are just a lot of empty office chairs and cubicles this Monday morning. Some current and now former WWE employees told PW Insider that they don't believe that this would have happened under Stephanie McMahon's watch. Of course, we'll never know whether that's actually the case, but the fact that people believe it says a lot. Now, a lot, that's a quote of the aforementioned employees, reflected on how when Stephanie was around, she worked to build morale among employees and wanted to instill pride among everyone working there, creating a positive environment. In contrast, TKO took the ruthless business approach. PW Insider reports that it's not heard of any layoffs of the UFC employees, as the Endeavor/UFC side had 51% of TKO, while the WWE side has 49%, so the layoffs were always going to come from the minority side. That perhaps tells us something how TKO is going to make decisions going forward as well. There still haven't been any reported WWE talent cuts as of yet, and it's unknown if and or when they will happen. Obviously, we wish everyone the best in WWE who received the unfortunate news that they were being made redundant on Friday as well. Let's switch to AEW and talk about QT Marshall. There's been a bit of an update on his future with the company. While some longtime AEW stars appeared to be on their way out of the company, QT Marshall is not one of them. Marshall reportedly agreed to a short-term deal with AEW late last week, keeping him with the promotion through the end of the year, as both sides continued to work towards a long-term extension. In an interview with Jofo in the Ring, Marshall confirmed the reports, as well as the fact he has 2 contracts with AEW, both as a performer and as an executive. Quote, I will say this, I have always worked for AEW, Marshall said. I'm one of the vice presidents. That is a job that I have. The talent is just a second thing that I have as well, right? I'm lucky. I have 2 jobs like Brandon Cutler, 2 contracts. Yes, we've made another agreement and we'll see what happens. I think until the end of the year. I don't know. The dirt sheets know more than me. I don't know how, but yes, I'm there. I won't be going anywhere else except AAA and as many independent shows as I possibly can. As of this recording, Marshall is the current Triple Eight Latin American champion, having won the title at Triple Mania in August. He revealed his current goals as the Latin American champion, saying, quote, "I'm trying to break Orange Cassidy's defense record," Marshall said. "I think he did 32 in a year or so, and I'm trying to hit 33 before I lose this title. So I think I'm at 4, so I've got a long way to go, but I wrestle anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere." So Marshall is sticking around at least for a little bit longer in AEW. Finally, Rob Van Dam has been announced for this coming week's episode of AEW Collision. The announcement was made last week and actually took many people by surprise, considering his last AEW appearance was considered to be really a one-off with the company, as he still might be, I don't know, under a Legends contract with WWE, apparently, according to some reports, and there were suggestions that there were plans for him to be involved for WrestleMania weekend in Philadelphia next year as well. Now, AEW heads to Grand Rapids, Michigan this weekend for Collision. Announced for the card are Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks facing off in a Texas death match, a rematch from their strap match at All Out. Andrade El Idolo taking on Jay White, and Rob Van Dam once again showing up for some action inside of an AEW ring. With his return announced just this past Saturday, Van Dam clarified for some of his fans on social media just how quickly plans came together for him to be part of this week's upcoming show, perhaps even mere hours before it was made official on the air. He said, quote, "To everyone asking about my status yesterday, I wasn't holding back. This just shows you how fast things can happen sometimes. See you in Michigan." Now, that's a stark departure from the last stretch of dates that Van Dam appeared for AEW. The whole effing show had previously indicated that his match on AEW Dynamite against Jack Perry for the FTW World Championship a few weeks ago had been in the works for several months. Van Dam did leave the door open on the possibility of coming back to AEW in the future, and Tony Khan appears to have been relatively keen on the idea to have dialed RVD up again so quickly. Then again, it does make sense given the location of Saturday's Collision. Van Dam hails from Battle Creek, Michigan, about an hour's drive away from the Van Andel Arena, making this a homecoming of sorts for the former ECW and WWE champion. But there you go, guys, the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.